Hello everybody and welcome to yet another DX onboarding breakdown. My name is Cristiano, and if you're not familiar with these videos, in these videos I like to look at what the developer onboarding looks like for developers to onboard onto different developer products. In the past I've looked at SendGrid, Pusher, Stripe, Twilio, etc. But today I'm going to be looking at Heroku, the platform as a service, or as most people know it, the easy way to just deploy an application onto the web. Now, I've got a system to this. If you haven't seen a video before, you might not be familiar with it, but very simply, I'm going to be looking at three things. First of all, I'm going to look at how easy it is to actually understand what your product is, what Heroku is in this case, before I even sign up. As a developer, I don't just want the marketing content meant for the business owners and the salespeople, etc. I want to see developer content. I want to see code. I want to see examples, and I want to get a bit of a feeling of what it would be like for me to actually use Heroku.com. Now, secondly, I'll look at the actual onboarding. I'll look at what it looks like to get started, to go from knowing absolutely nothing to making that first API call, or in this case, probably deploying a first application. And then thirdly, I'll look at how easy it is to understand, based on that content that I have, the actions I've just done, what I've actually done, how easy it is to find the reference documentation about the API call I've just made, or in the case of Heroku, probably the CLI interface. So on that note, let's get started. So if we head over to Heroku.com, we'll see a very interesting non-developer focused website. Sure, the content here is about developer products, but it's very much marketing focused. What I find interesting here is that this is a carousel, and to me a carousel is just a sign that multiple departments are fighting for that above the fold space, and rather than having a focused message on landing, it's a bit of a mix and match of different content. The first content we saw actually is a new feature. It's a bit of an announcement of a new feature that has been released. What's interesting is this isn't interesting for anybody who just lands on Heroku.com for the first time. And anybody who actually has an Heroku account already and is logged in will never see this site, because the moment you hit Heroku.com, it will just redirect you to the dashboard. So things aren't that interesting on the top half of the page. If we scroll further down, we see some interesting content. And here we see some of the developer experience elements that Heroku has put into place. Firstly, this is a little slider. And what they've done is they've made it very clear that if you use Heroku, you basically replace this very complicated, convoluted system over here with this more simplified three-step process that is provided by Heroku. And they've very clearly defined some very simple building blocks: deploy, manage, scale. And these building blocks, they're not just made for marketing here, because they actually help Heroku tell the story. If we scroll further down, for example, we start to see some videos, and let me switch this to actually be high quality. Here you will see within the story of note, you will see some code and some examples of what it would be like to actually use Heroku. And again, it's about 5 different videos, and they actually exist under deploy, manage, scale. So there's first a video of how you actually deploy your app, then setting up continuous deployment, application metrics, adding add-ons, and then eventually sliding the nodes to higher to add more nodes to your application to provide instant scaling. So that is pretty damn neat. I think that is pretty cool. If we scroll further down, it becomes a bit more of a marketing kind of writing things up. There are some direct pages as well for the different programming languages. So if I click here on Ruby, you'll actually see, again, I'm not sure why this doesn't just show me the high quality. I'm on pretty damn fast internet here. And this is 5 little videos where they take you through kind of the hello world example of how to use Heroku, but specifically for Ruby. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it takes you through the steps. I think it's actually one video. I think it's one video, but it's listening to the time points in the video to advance the steps here on the right. Yeah, there we go. See? That's pretty damn neat. Some code samples, some examples. I think it would be hard for Heroku to do this in any other way but with videos, because so much of it relies on actually deploying an application, using the app, having an application in the first place to deploy. So to get somebody set up would be pretty hard to do as an example, except for 3 videos. But again, they've clearly identified the 3 steps: deploy, manage, scale. And they've managed to tell a story of how easy it is through the use of these videos. So, on that note, let's get started and sign up. So sign up, there's a big button there. And the reason why I like looking at sign up is because quite often companies ask interesting questions during sign up that are either not necessary or reveal a lot about what the company is actually interested in. So in this case, it asks some pretty standard name questions, first name, last name. I mean, I wish they would just ask me for just my name, because right now I'm not quite sure why a first name and a last name is that important. Additionally, not everybody in the world has a first name and a last name, or, naming is not that simple. If you want to read more about that, I advise you to just Google for it. Email address, Heroku@beta.io. Then it's asking me for a company name. Now, I'm not sure what that means. It's clearly not mandatory, but there's no explanation here as to why they want to know my company name. Does that mean I get a company account? Can I change this later? These questions are normally very hard for people, but seeing as it's not a mandatory field, I'm just going to skip it. Then my favorite one for any developer product is the role. What kind of role do you have? What kind of client are you? Clearly, this is for them to be able to do some follow-up, some direct sales. The problem with these things is, I can be a professional developer working at an agency. I can be a student and a professional developer. I can be a business owner and a hobbyist and a developer. Ideally, you're going to either end up with incorrect data or incomplete data. So I'm just going to mark myself as a professional developer. The country, it's been pre-filled with my location. Interestingly enough, again, it does not explain why this is being asked. Does this mean my servers will be automatically hosted within the UK region? Very unclear. And then the programming language. Now, the programming language normally within a developer onboarding makes a lot of sense. It asks me what my preferred programming language is, and as a result, it can build the developer onboarding around that idea. So let's pick Ruby, or let's actually pick Node, because Heroku originally started off as a Ruby project, but let's see if they what their Node onboarding actually looks like. It's been a while since they added all these other features. Oh, lovely CAPTCHA buses. Let's see if I'm any good at buses. Yes, I am. There we go. Cool. I did not set up my email. There we go. Confirm. Nice and simple email. Confirm your account on Heroku. Very clear call to action. This is not going to get lost. We click on this. I'm never too sure why this is an extra step. Why I'm not just automatically logged in. Clearly, I haven't set up my password up to this point yet, so that's something that should be looked at. But yeah, I normally just prefer to be logged in and having limited access to my account, so maybe not being able to deploy any apps yet until my account has been verified. So set my password. Great. I'm okay. I'm ready to go. Again, not sure why this is an extra step. Maybe it's just give the developer a bit of a satisfying end to this and say, look, you are done now with sign up. This is officially the end of sign up. On the other end, this is not what I came for. I didn't come for sign up. I came to learn what Heroku is. Okay, here we go. Now, interestingly enough, I now have a tab open that I can now close. There you go. Let's get rid of this one, close that. And there we are. Now, I'm quite disappointed at this point because I've already previously said that my preferred programming language is Node. And yet at the same time, they actually give me this selection between these programming languages now. This is a big purple button over here. And if I actually click this button, what it ends up doing is it ends up taking me through just the manual process of setting an app, but it doesn't take me through the Get Started guides. So the thing with the most kind of prominent call to action, the big purple button, is probably not what I want to do on first use. I don't understand why I'm not just being let through sign up, why I'm not just being let through into the Node.js Get Started guide. It would make perfect sense on that first try to lead me into that and then allow me to opt out of that if I wanted to. Anyway, I click Node.js. And then it does something weird. It asks me to authorize the Dev Center. Now, the Dev Center is Heroku's developer documentation and onboarding. There's basically the documentation portal. And it wants me to basically allow Heroku to log me into the Dev Center. And as far as I can tell, there's no reason for this except for the fact that they now know who I am, that they can show my name here in the top right, and that anywhere where I try to provide feedback, I don't need to provide details about who I am. That seems like a bit of a weird step to require me to log in like that, rather than just do kind of an implicit authorization between devcenter.heroku.com and heroku.com. Anyway, I do really love these Get Started guides on Heroku. They're very clear. They've clearly designed an entire path that doesn't just get people to the deploy stage, but also through to the managing and the scaling stages of their application. I wish that they kind of separated these multiple steps into those different elements, kind of have those three building blocks come back again. But again, these are very clear little steps that every developer would realistically have to go through. I also really love the design. We're clearly within a Get Started page. We know that that's what we're doing. And on every page, there's a big purple button that is kind of the success state of where we want to go next. I'm ready to start. I am. And then on the first step, it just requires us to set up the CLI. Now, I'm on a Mac, so let's pick that. Let's download the package. Let's install it. There we go. That's done. Move that to the trash. Okay. So with that in place, let's move this to the left here. Make it a bit smaller. There we go. That fits. And then we hit Heroku. Should be there. There we go. Heroku login. Excellent. Heroku at. There we go. We're logged in. That's great. Next up, we need to make sure we have the right node, npm, and git versions, which I've done. I've installed the Heroku CLI. Like I said, it's very cool that there's kind of two buttons at the bottom of every page. One with a very clear success state, with the success state declared within the button, saying, I have installed the Heroku CLI. And then report a problem. Again, I don't have to log in. I can just report a problem on any page, which is a great way to get some feedback about your developer experience. If people get stuck, they can report it. Nothing really left there to do. Okay, I've installed the Heroku CLI. Now, and they've provided basically a test app, so let's clone that. And then if we go into that, we'll see that it's basically just a pretty simple Express app. We can kind kind of cat that. See, this is just a basic Express app, and I think in test.js. Oh, that's the test. There were some paths in there as well. It's all pretty standard stuff. So I've cloned the app source code again. Simple, tiny steps. We can go and create an application now. So Heroku create, and we've seemed to have gotten a new URL here. So if we kind of copy paste that, that will just say we don't actually have anything, but there is an app there. And then we push our application to master, to Heroku. There we go. It figures out it's a Node app. It installs the binaries, it builds it, it compresses it, and it's launching. What is weird here is that it's now asking me to scale up at least one web node. Heroku is built around different nodes for different processes. So there's a proc file here that has a web node in it that explains how to actually start the application. But what is weird here, we have to run this command, which would scale up one node. But if we just look at it, this is already running. There's already one web node running. So this is making sure that something is running that should be running. So it's rather confusing why Heroku feels like this needs to be part of their onboarding guide. Anyway, let's run it. That works. Scales the dyno. Maybe it's just to show how easy it is to set the number of dynos running for an application. And if we just then run Heroku open, that actually opens our browser, and that is our application launched and deployed on that URL that just before didn't have anything. And again, you big kind of success state button, I've deployed my app. And we can now look at the logs as well. We can run this, inspect the logs, and if we reload this again, we'll see the logs kind of scroll past every time we reload. Great. So that is, I mean, I could go through all these other steps, but I think from an initial point of getting started, that's pretty damn good. A couple of weird oddities during the get started, especially around the sign up and not remembering that I picked note on the sign up form, not directly logging me in, and then requiring this kind of weird dev center login flow, which in the end was just a question of clicking on a button. It just felt a bit weird and unexpected. Next up really is to figure out their reference documentation. And in this case, in most cases when I look at this, I'd look at APIs. I'd look at API calls and trying to find the actual reference documentation about that specific API call. But in this case, I want to know, there is no real API here except for maybe the CLI. So on that note, Heroku create, what does that do? How does that work? I could run Heroku create help and see the content for that as well, but I wonder if they have something on their website. So if we look at it, their documentation is kind of broken down by kind of the different programming languages and then kind of the different parts. And what we can see here is command line. And if we go there, we can see Heroku CLI commands. Great. And then if we search for create, we see add-ons create and apps create. And I think apps create is probably what this is. Yeah, it seems to be aliased under a shorter name. And we can see all the different parts of it and what it's supposed to be doing. So that is pretty straightforward. So actually finding that isn't too hard. The reason why I prefer this to actually also be available online is because it makes it Googleable. It means that I can type these kind of things into Google and hopefully get back to this page and find the content that I need. Now under the hood, there's probably an API running this. So let's see if I can find something about that as well. I wouldn't be under support. Wouldn't be under there. Heroku architecture. No, that actually explains to me how Heroku works. Maybe extending Heroku. Ooh, APIs, API, webhooks API, platform API. There we go, platform API reference. A bit harder to find, but let's see, an app create. There we go, app create. That's interesting. Okay, so there's a curl command here. Let's see if we can make that run. This seems to create an app, post to this with the name, the region, the stack type, etc. So let's see. Could not find that region. Okay. Region. Unique identifier or name of region. Okay, so let's replace that with the name. See if we can actually make that work. Stack not found. Again, there's a different stack here called Cedar 14. Let's see if we can quickly edit that. Name is already taken. Oh yeah, application names within Heroku are global, so we need to beta Heroku 1. Excellent. That seems to have created it. So if we copy this, that should be running now. Excellent. Now, one thing that is a bit weird about this is I didn't seem to actually authenticate this API. There's no, in this command, there's no access token, API key or anything. And they've done something very clever, which is when I ran that Heroku login command, right? When I ran that, it created a .NET-RC file in my file system. And if I cat that, you'll see that it basically has my user ID and my password kind of in there very handily. Now that's really cool. That means that I just need to copy paste these commands, and theoretically they should work without me requiring to actually refresh, having to set the access token, get an access token, all that kind of difficult stuff that would stop me from making an API call. So theoretically I should be able to copy paste any command line code and run it. Sadly, unfortunately, I still needed to change the stack, the name, the region, which could have been made a little bit easier. Could have been clarified that those things are not, that need to be pre-filled. It would be cool if I could have just exactly copy-pasted that and it would have simply worked. So yeah, that all works. Let's close this. Let's close these. That's it for my onboarding review of Heroku. I have to say that was very easy, very straightforward. They've done a great job at explaining pretty much all three parts of the onboarding that I looked at. They did a great job at explaining what the product is before you get started. The onboarding, a couple of little snacks, but not, nothing major that stopped me from moving on. And then a pretty nice onboarding flow to flow into, and a great get started guide, very clearly built into tiny little steps that are easy to follow. And the reference documentation was actually surprisingly easy to find, required a little bit of digging, and then the part around making API calls without any tokens was pretty straightforward as well. So all in all, not too bad. I really like that. The people at Heroku have done a very good job. So if you want me to do one of these videos next, let me know who you want me to do them for. Let me know which company you think I should be looking at next. And if you want me to do something like this with your company or work with your company, feel free to reach out. I'm available for hire. So thank you very much.